What's up, Geeks and Gamers? It's Odin coming back with a video, and today we've got the box office breakdown for this past weekend, which sees Jurassic World Dominion opening near $400 million worldwide, and Top Gun Maverick getting all the way up to $747 million after only being out for just a few weeks. This film is just stomping forward to the point where I think logically we can have the conversation that Top Gun Maverick could be the first billion-dollar film of 2022. Of course, that is if Jurassic World Dominion is not able to continue its march forward, as it did have a very impressive opening weekend and has been projected to be a pretty massive hit, especially since it's going to be getting a lot of that China CCP money, making close to $50+ million in that one country, meaning that money is going to fund the Communist Party. But with all that being said, let's dive into the actual numbers themselves and see where these films ended up. As we see from this article from Deadline, big action at the global and international box office this weekend as Jurassic World Dominion put its dino print into an additional 57 overseas markets. And along with last weekend's holdovers, grossed an estimated $177 million to have a offshore cumulative of $245.8 million through Sunday. With a threequel stomping domestic bow, the global tally has reached a toothy $389.1. Oh man, don't you just love when they try to add in these puns and try and pretend to be funny? That's always great. Everyone loves that. But what's even more impressive, and I think that most people would argue that this is the most impressive film so far of this year, just because it is doing so much better than I think anyone could have possibly expected. And also, it's just always surprising whenever there's actually a really good movie put out by Hollywood that's good on its face and doesn't have any identity politics into it either. I think that's always an amazing thing to see, and obviously it's something that's always worth promotion of. Not to mention, they are not going to be releasing this film in China, so hey, kudos to Paramount for doing that. Not that they are perfect, but in this specific case for this movie, kudos to them. As it says right here, though, it's still speeding along as it's crossed the $700 million mark worldwide and has made $747 million through today. The Tom Cruise star added $52.7 million in 64 overseas markets during its third frame, another terrific drop of just 39%. So this film continues to have record-breaking holdovers from week to week. This film is consistently, if you add the domestics and the internationals, dropping close to 30 to 40% since even opening weekend. So with those kinds of drops, this film is very likely to reach a billion-dollar point by the end of its run. I know I've said that with other films that have not actually gotten to that point. Films like, for instance, Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, but that film had such massive drop-offs internationally and domestically that it's shot itself in the foot. That all being said, there is still some room for that movie, but it is very quickly running out as it only added about another $20 million when all the markets are added in for this weekend. Doctor Strange 2, that is, whereas Top Gun Maverick is continuing to add on just tons of money, and it's only been out just for a few weeks. So I think that this film absolutely is, if any, likely to make $1 billion. I would put probably most money on Top Gun Maverick, and then put the second most money on, at least getting there first, on the Jurassic World film. We'll have to wait and see what the second weekend drop-off is going to look like for that film. And then I would put very little money on Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, because it's still theoretically possible, but not as likely because of just how much the film has dropped off to this point in time. Going to the actual numbers themselves for the domestic charting, as you can see here, Jurassic World Dominion had a $143.3 million opening weekend domestically. Very impressive numbers, to say the very least. This is a film that is not quite as impressive as even previous films in the franchise of Jurassic World franchise, but it's still holding its own and is likely, if I had to imagine, likely going to be close to the end result and total, or at the very least very near the end total of Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom. Some of us, I think, sometimes forget that the first Jurassic World film, when you adjust for inflation, made around $1.8 billion. The second film made around $1.3 billion. So this film's chances of getting to $1 billion is actually quite high, especially since the opening weekend numbers here are very similar to what we saw with the last film, which was garbage. This film's not all that great either, but comparing this to Fallen Kingdom is night and day. Dropping finally into the number 2 spot is Top Gun Maverick in its third week, making another $50 million here in the States, here in the domestic market. As you can see, it's now starting to drop out of some screens. They're dropping out of 489 screens, even though its per theater number is still around $11,000. Very impressive, to say the least. Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness has dropped to the number 3 spot with $4.8 million. As you can see, it is starting to run out of room domestically and also internationally, and so that's why I suspect this film will indeed cross the $400 million mark. But what's interesting to me is that this film has been out for 6 weeks. Top Gun Maverick has only been out for 3, and look at how close this is. So Top Gun Maverick not only is on pace to pass up Doctor Strange in the next day or two, but also will, without a shadow of a doubt, be a higher domestic grosser than Doctor Strange. And I think that is very impressive for Top Gun Maverick. For a film to be made over 30 years from the original to actually in many ways be better than the original, that is almost unheard of. So again, kudos to Tom Cruise and the crew behind it, behind Top Gun Maverick, because it is a darn good time at the theater, and many people are experiencing this. Bob Zerger's film still around, dropping another 50% here. No change in theaters after 3 weeks, 20th Century Studios. So Disney is, for some reason, keeping this film out, even though its per theater is not all that great. But hey, it is what it is. I haven't seen the movie yet. Haven't really ever watched the show, so I can't really speak much to it. Bad Guys coming in at the number 5 spot, rounding out the top 5 with $2.25 million. So still making some money nonetheless. As you can look at the actual international numbers here, the totals, Jurassic World Dominion up to $389 million. So this film will easily cross $400 million, probably will be well past $500 million by the end of next weekend, which is the reason why $1 billion will at least be possible. The question is, how much money does this film continue to make internationally throughout the week? How much money does this make throughout the domestic market, and does competition start to play a role in which films have strongholds or not? Basically, word of mouth on this film is probably a little bit mixed. Again, I think when the best thing I can say about a movie is, hey, well, it's not as bad as the last one, you start to realize that there aren't a lot of, a lot of positive things that I think one could try and convince somebody to go see the actual film itself. One of the other metrics there is ComScore, for instance, does a lot of tracking on this. And one of the things that they track is, 1, do you like the film? And 2, would you recommend the film? And when you get to the question about whether you would recommend strongly this film for anyone to go see it, it was only about 56, 57%. And so that is, again, still positive. It's over 50% mark there. When it comes to recommendations, that would be a positive number, but it also is not all that great. And the fact is that Fallen Kingdom actually had higher ratings than this movie did, which is kind of insane to me, especially since this film is definitely a lot better in a lot of different ways. There's a lot of faults with this film. The villain, especially, being basically Tim Cook from, who controls Apple, is basically the villain, and it's as cringy as you would think that it would be. Again, I don't quite understand it, but hey, fact is, this is going to be an international hit, whereas for Top Gun Maverick, this is doing well in both markets. So domestic number, it's going to be the bigger number of the two if I had to guess, but this is all also doing this without China, whereas Jurassic World is making money in China. Let's see if they've updated their numbers here. As you can see, it's made $52.5 million in China. 75% of that is going to be going to the Chinese Communist Party, so keep that in mind. Just again, when we talk about, calling out these studios, as I like to always do. Top Gun Maverick, on the other hand, is at these numbers all without a China release. So again, kudos to them for being on this march. Also without a China release, but for very different reasons, Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness is now up to $930.2 million. So as you can see, it's making a lot of money. The profits on this film are absolutely insane. Again, it's made hundreds of millions of net profits, so it is objectively a successful film. However, with all that being said, it is definitely a film that dropped off significantly when you're looking comparing this to to Top Gun Maverick. It's incredibly interesting. Obviously, this has a much larger, and will have by the end of its run, a much larger international run, as this is at 532, whereas Maverick is looking to get close to 400 million by the end of next weekend internationally. But domestically, we'll see Top Gun Maverick easily take the cake if I had to make any guesses. And then rounding out the top 5, once again, we had The Bad Guys going to $225.9 million. Looking at the actual box office charting, because we all like some charts around here. If we look at some of the numbers, what's pretty impressive actually about this opening weekend for Jurassic World Dominion is that at the $389.1 million, it means right now it's only $14 million in the red. So this film is going to break even sometime this week, and absolutely by the end of next weekend. So this film is definitely going to be a moneymaker. It's definitely going to be making some net gains, net profits. And yes, I know that the box office total date up there is incorrect, but this is going to be a huge moneymaker for Universal. So obviously they're going to be very happy with that. But just compare that to where right now Top Gun Maverick is. This was under $100 million last weekend. Now it's getting close to $200+ million in net gain profits. And so as I'd mentioned, this film is on a massive roll. This film is well on its way. to being one of the most successful films of 2022, and potentially maybe even the most successful film. Well, there's still a lot of films set to come out. Thor: Love and Thunder, I know everyone's excited about that movie, amongst many other films set to come out late June and July, but these are the numbers that they stand. What are y'all's thoughts about them? Let me know in the comment section down below. If you like this video, smash that like button, lap that fire button on Odyssey. Y'all are all amazing and beautiful people. If you want to see a fuller box office breakdown, going into other films and other data, comparing, contrasting certain films, I'll have a video up a little bit later today on my channel, OMB Reviews. Anyway, you guys are great. Have a wonderful rest of your day. And as always, God bless.